California is like a woman, a beautiful woman who used to blow you, but she hasn't blown you in like forever. And she's still spending all your fucking money. And she won't let anybody else blow you. And now she has homeless people living in her twat.
Hey, California has its issues, but I wouldn't necessarily put it like that. But for today, welcome to Dino Reacts, and come along with me on this journey as we go from ignorance to excellence. And once again, we're talking to Thomas Sowell, and we're going to talk about the state of California and why leftists don't necessarily want to get rid of freedom. I love educating myself on his topics. He is expanding my mind. So as always, let's get after it.
If you think there is a limit to how much childishness there is among Californians, you may want to reconsider, especially for Californians in academic communities. Recently, a mountain lion was discovered up in a tree in Palo Alto, a residential community adjacent to Stanford University. This was at about the time of day when a nearby school was getting ready to let out. There had already been an incident of a horse being found mauled by some animal on Stanford land, and some thought it might have been a mountain lion that did it. Fearing that the mountain lion might find one of the local school children a tempting target, the police shot and killed the animal. Outrage against the police erupted up and down the San Francisco Peninsula and as far away as Marin County.
Dude, I knew that was coming. I'm sitting here listening like, they're going to turn on the cops. California is so anti-cop, it's not even fair. And it doesn't make any sense. I'm from California myself. You can see the LA hat. Man, I was here during the summer of love, 2020. And I still do not understand why they were rioting against police in a Democratic state. Those were Democratic cops breaking Democratic buildings. You know what I'm saying? And then this is getting out to let me know that the city is going to get mad at them killing a mountain lion that was potentially going to harm citizens. They have to euthanize the beast. It's only common sense to do. But let's go. California's out of his mind.
On the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, more than 30 miles away. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, the police agency has been flooded with outraged calls and emails from people inflamed by TV news videotape of the lion lolling peacefully in a tree just before an officer shot it to death with a high-powered rifle. Yes, the mountain lion was sitting peacefully. That is what cats do before they pounce, usually very swiftly. Second-guessers always have easy alternatives. One protester against the murdering of such a beautiful creature said that it easily could have been removed from the premises and relocated, and that the dirty, bloodthirsty bastards who killed it should be ashamed of themselves.
Okay, now, that's a fair statement to say. Only because, did they have any tranquilizers, something with some kind of high potent ingredient that they could have shot it with that would have, made it become docile and fall out of the tree? I don't know how that would have harmed the animal. They did not state how far the animal was up in the tree, so there's that too. But I'm just thinking, maybe they could have tranquilized it, put a net behind it, or how far away from the tree did the guy shoot it from? Did they go under the tree and look up at it? Which I wouldn't think you were going to do with a mountain lion, especially if it's in a tree in a residential neighborhood. It's probably really hungry. There's that too. And it was scoping out prey, and he's right, they do move swiftly. But just still saying, trying to play both sides. Maybe they could have tranquilized it.
The protester offered no helpful hints on how you easily remove a mountain lion from a tree, and certainly did not volunteer to demonstrate how to do it in person the next time the police find a mountain lion up a tree in a residential neighborhood. Animal rights advocates said the police could have given the mountain lion a chance by attempting to tranquilize it while it was up in the tree, and save shooting as a last resort if it turned aggressive. A makeshift shrine has been erected on the spot where the mountain lion died. Flowers, cards, and photos have been placed around it.
That's a California thing.
This is an academic community where indignation is a way of life. Those engaged in moral exhibitionism have no time for mundane realities. The police, of course, have to deal with mundane realities fatalities all the time. Not long before this episode, the police had tried to capture 3 mountain lion cubs by shooting them with tranquilizers. They missed on 2 out of 3 tries with 1 cub. What if the police had shot a tranquilizer gun at the adult mountain lion in the tree and missed? Would they have had a chance to get off a second shot at a swiftly moving target before he pounced on one of the hundreds of children that were soon to be leaving school near him? Moral exhibitionists never make allowance for the police missing, whether with tranquilizers shot at mountain lions or bullets fired at a criminal. The perpetually indignant are forever wondering why it took so many shots. It would never occur to people with academic degrees and professorships that they are both ignorant and incompetent in vast areas of human life, much less that they should keep that in mind before they vent their emotions and wax self-righteous. Degrees show that you have knowledge in some special area. Too often, they embolden people to pontificate on a wide range of other subjects where they don't know what they are talking about. The fact that academics are overwhelmingly of the political left is perfectly consistent with their assumption that third parties, especially third parties like themselves, should be controlling the decisions of other people who have first-hand knowledge and experience. The cops probably haven't read Chaucer and don't know what existentialism is, but they may know what danger is. Some Palo Alto parents of small children living near where the mountain lion was killed said that the police did the right thing. There are still some pockets of sanity, even in Palo Alto.
Well, I can definitely say that is a California thing to do. We always look at the victim before we look at what caused the situation that put the victim in a situation like that. California is a state that is completely all about the intellectuals telling people what to do with situations that they have no business being a part of. Like, we're the highest state with the most intellectuals that are childless, but they all have legislation in place to try to tell with the normal populace that has most of the kids here how they should raise their kids. And they create policies here that definitely dictate to the parents of those children that they do not have any autonomy and rights to their own children. So they're always meddling here in things that don't involve them without thinking consciously of their own responsibilities. That is a normal California thing to do. I think it's suspect and kind of evil. But no, and it will continue until the people at the bottom stop allowing these people to be in office. But they also make these people think like the vote doesn't matter. So it keeps perpetuating the same cycle of keeping the same people in those high positions that continually will make legislation that takes away your parental rights. They just don't think like that. And he was absolutely right about the educated thinking that because they're intelligent in one field, they're intelligent in all fields. And that is not even the case with tradesmen like myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm a chef. I can tell you everything about a pot of shoe all the way to a croque gourmand, all the way down the list of how to butcher, fabricate, but I would never tell a plumber or electrician what to do. Just because I'm a master of my culinary craft doesn't mean that I'm a master of all trades. But you find that with the intellectual hierarchy here in California, so I get what he means. But let's continue on to the next clip.
Most people on the left are not opposed to freedom. They are just in favor of all sorts of things that are incompatible with freedom. Freedom ultimately means the right of other people to do things that you do not approve of. Nazis were free to be Nazis under Hitler. It is only when you are able to do things that other people don't approve that you are free. One of the most innocent-sounding examples of the left's many impositions of...
I've never heard that put like that before. The only way to experience and practice true freedoms is to do things that other people do not agree with. Whew. I'm going to lock that in. Whew, thank you, sir.
Vision on others is the widespread requirement by schools and by college admissions committees that students do community service. There are high schools across the country from which you cannot graduate, and colleges where your application for admission will not be accepted unless you have engaged in activities arbitrarily defined as community service. The arrogance of commandeering young people's time, instead of leaving them and their parents free to decide for themselves how to use that time, is exceeded only by the arrogance of imposing your own notions as to what is or is not a service to the community. Working in a homeless shelter is widely regarded as community service, as if aiding and abetting vagrancy is necessarily a service, rather than a disservice to the community. Is a community better off with more people not working, hanging out on the streets, aggressively panhandling people on the sidewalks, urinating in the street, leaving narcotics needles in the parks where children play? This is just one of the ways in which handing out various kinds of benefits to people who have not worked for them breaks the connection between productivity and reward.
You got a point there, because now in California, we're not prosecuting laws with anybody caught with drugs under $1,000. So in that case, junkies are roaming the street fine, but they're only doing that in low-income residential neighborhoods. In the high-income neighborhoods, in the suburbs, and the communities that just have the rich amount of dollars that have private security along with police, they're not around here. They keep them out. But everywhere else, no problem at all. Junkies roaming the streets, having homelessness, deep homelessness, especially if you go into the eastern part of Los Angeles and downtown Los Angeles. It is crazy over there. It's like a war zone, and it's open use of drugs because the police can't prosecute them because they know that the district attorneys of the city will not take the cases. So even if they arrest them, it's not worth doing the paperwork. They just put them back out on the street. So now he's talking about like being forced. Who would want to send their child to do community services in environments that actually perpetuate drug use? You're almost sending your child to be a junkie or to be associated with that, because it doesn't take that much, especially when it comes to the lack of emotional maturity that we have in a lot of the young adults today, to get caught up in the game and get turned out. So I would say community service will be a good thing if you're in a household that's not, and you feel that your child needs to be taught how the real world operates, and they have to do it in a way that since they're not being paid for it, they'll adjust to understanding like the toll of putting charity above profit, which I can understand that, but not today. Last thing I would do was send a naive child into the war zone of the community system here in Los Angeles. They're going to get ate alive because they won't know how to deal with the adults that now feel emboldened with drugs to rationalize their use. And also, I would think they would feel unsafe being around police officers that would justify this behavior based upon the fact that they can't prosecute it lawfully. So it's a negative. Not today. Don't do it.
As far as they are concerned. But that connection remains as unbreakable as ever for society as a whole. You can make anything an entitlement for individuals and groups, but nothing is an entitlement for society as a whole, not even food or shelter, both of which have to be produced by somebody's work or they will not exist. What entitlements for some people mean is forcing other people to work for their benefit. As a bumper sticker put it, work harder. Millions of people on welfare are depending on you. The most fundamental problem, however,
that is wild to say. Work harder. Many people on welfare are dependent upon you, and that is a very systematic thing. With California state taxes, especially how much they attack independent business, and how the salaries are being raised by our legislators here, and pushing a lot of companies and a lot of new businesses outside of the state, specifically to Texas and Florida. Most of us are now working to the bone at a very high tax rate just to do what? Give that money to the welfare to entitle people that do not work as hard, but feel that they're better than you because they get to sit at home. I had an auntie that used to get mad at me for the hours I worked because she was like, you work too much. Why you work too much? You need to be getting this mailbox money. I'm like, what the fuck is mailbox money? I was like, I pay for that money. You know that, right? I go out there and pay taxes. You don't pay any taxes. She's like, well, I do pay taxes. I go to the liquor store and they tax me on everything. That's not what I mean. The small amount of taxes that is garnered from you going to get groceries is not the amount that is coming out of my payroll check. But she couldn't understand that because, like you said, that entitlement of being able to sit around on Section 8 and getting this mailbox money was a lot more beneficial to her than actually going out there and pushing forward. And California does that on purpose, because I'm telling you, 99.9% of the people participating in those programs will vote Democrat, and in turn vote these same politicians back in office that will perpetuate the same cycle to stay in power. it's a very counterproductive strategy to providing self-sufficient citizens in California, but I don't think that's the case anymore. They're depending on people like me with goodwill to continue to go out there and bust and toil and work because we want the American dream. Just eventually have more than a quarter of our paychecks taken in taxes, or if you're on a W-2 or I-90, and just giving it to people who don't want to work and feel they're superior to you. It's a backward state. Insane.
Not which particular activities students are required to engage in under the title of community service. The most fundamental question is, what in the world qualifies teachers and members of college admissions committees to define what is good for society as a whole, or even for the students on whom they impose their arbitrary notions? What expertise do they have that justifies overriding other people's freedom? What do their arbitrary impositions show, except that fools rush in where angels fear to tread? What lessons do students get from this, except submission to arbitrary power? Supposedly, students are to get a sense of compassion or noblesse oblige from serving others. But this all depends on who defines compassion. In practice, it means forcing students to undergo a propaganda experience to make them receptive to the left's vision of the world.
Yes.
I am sure those who favor community service requirements would understand.
To make them understanding to the less vision of the world. So basically, and somebody tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, is he saying that they put them through community service to make them adjusted to taking care of people that can't provide for themselves or won't provide for themselves, and in turn making them comfortable doing it out of service, out of some greater good, when in actuality all they're doing is not being paid to perpetuate people that will not actively participate in the American dream by contributing hard work and skills and labor to the tax force. Tell me if I'm onto something or I'm a little bit off, but I'm kind of seeing in there a little bit, but something. Ooh boy, that's something wrong about that, man. Mr. Sowell, thank you, sir.
And the principle behind the objections to this if high school military exercises were required. Indeed, many of those who promote compulsory community service activities are bitterly opposed to even voluntary military training in high schools or colleges, though many other people regard military training as more of a contribution to society than feeding people who refuse to work. In other words, people on the left want the right to impose their idea of what is good for society on others, a right that they vehemently deny to those whose idea of what is good for society differs from their own. The essence of bigotry is refusing to others the rights that you demand for yourself. Such bigotry is inherently incompatible with freedom, even though many on the left would be shocked to be considered opposed to freedom.
I have to say, Thomas Sowell is a brilliant man, and he's absolutely right. They want to impose on you things that they do not want imposed on them, and if you disagree with them, they want to take away your rights to be able to disagree. So in turn, they're trying to create a society of only people that agree with them, and which in turn is creating no opposing views, which is not truly freedom. It's not really balanced. And like here, it's happening with everything. California is now going to impose a oh my God, I always laugh about this, a gas tax, but not the gas tax as you may think it is. They're trying to put little machines in everybody's cars to charge 30 cents per mile as you drive, because everybody has to drive to work. And I'm thinking about people I know that drive from Palmdale to come work on my job in Malibu, how much they're going to be paying to have that monitor in your car, and then to have them easily, who said there's not a tracking device in that monitor? That's crazy, right? Not to think about the trans bill here, that the teacher does not have to tell the parents if their child wants to change their pronouns or is considering transitioning. That's only between the student and the teacher. How insanely crazy is that? But that's here in California. Bear in part another thing, $25 an hour for minimum wage. That money should not be going to jobs that should be held by high school and college students, not by adults. but they don't incentivize adults here to go out and seek employment for themselves. They incentivize them to take low-income jobs and not educate their minds, and then to keep them voting for the same policies with Democrats. They want to give them more hour, which led to Elon Musk and SpaceX leaving, James Harrison leaving, In-N-Out has closed stores and leaving. So many CVS has closed stores and leaving. Five Guys Pizzas has closed the stores. So many of these industries that they say that they want to keep here are now leaving the state because they can't afford it. With Bidenomics inflation, recipe for disaster in the state. So it's going to create what I would say, like in English, feudal system. A lot of poor people with a few diamonds in the rough that can struggle through the cracks to get to the top, and the elite that make all the rules and have all the money and have all the fun and all the parties and make and then they try to make people say like, well, if you abide by us, you can come up here and hang out. Doesn't that sound like the feudal system? That doesn't sound like democracy or it's a constitutional republic or freedom. So California right now is on the forefront of a disastrous and burning state. And I'm not here for that. Not at all. But I'm going to keep putting the message out and let people say it. And definitely, thank you, Thomas Sowell. You are in a couple of short videos that I'm now grasping in and also digging into his books, Discrimination and Disparities. I am slowly getting out of ignorance and rising to excellence. And anybody who's coming on this journey with me, thank you, man. Thank you. And bear in mind, man, I'm trying to get there. Give me some time. Woo! Once again, thank you guys for watching Dino Reacts. And if you like my content, like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, chef's kiss. Mwah!